everybody. I am here with James Roberts. He writes a comic book called More Than Meets the Eye, among other comic books he's written. We're here at TFcon 2015.
Wow.
End of Saturday.
Yeah, and the downtime.
Downtime. At that point where everyone just sort of simmers. I've been in that state all day. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit just about, you've been writing this comic book that people seem to be reading.
Yes.
And I recently read some of the last two issues taking place on the Vis Vitalis, and with that I'm going to throw out there, spoiler warning, we are going to talk about comics that have come out. So if you are watching this interview but haven't read the book, thanks for checking it out.
Well, yeah, that's...
but we are going to spoil some stuff. So the first thing I thought when I finished the Personality Ticks two-parter is, how much Red Dwarf have you watched?
You're not the first person to say that. Yeah, I mean, I am a Red Dwarf fan. Yeah, so if people make that comparison, that's a tick in the box. I'm pleased with that. Yeah, I mean, I could talk for a long time about Red Dwarf. I mean, I was 13, I guess. No, I was 11 when it started, and so it hit me at the right time. I mean, there's always been bits in More Than Meets the Eye which are Red Dwarfy, but then Red Dwarf, I think itself sort of fits into a peculiarly British tradition of sort of slightly out there science fiction, which doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, Red Dwarf was principally a comedy, but actually, at its best, had some good character-driven stories as well. Yeah. But I mean, even Doctor Who, if you're thinking of the personality ticks themselves, I mean, they wouldn't be out of place in a I hope, in a sort of Doctor Who story, maybe not on telly, but in a Doctor Who comic or an audio adventure. So Doctor Who, Red Dwarf, Hitchhiker's Guide, that type of thing. So I think it sort of taps into that sort of tradition of wow, look, atmospheric noise, of
live audience.
Yeah, that tradition of sort of high concept British sci-fi.
Yeah, the thing that caught me that really made me think Red Dwarf was just it's a particular mix of very specific, very logical, like laid out science to how this this fictional creature works, and then a very in science but in if you say the bullet point of what happened, two very charismatic fellows walked into the room and they died. Like it comes off like what?
No, it's true. It's sort of I mean, let's be clear. Obviously, it's it won't the scientific theory such as it is. I mean, requires huge leaps. It's delivered with a straight face, which is a bit like Red Dwarf, I guess. So that helps. And if you buy that, then the sort of logical. If you take it to an extreme, then it should be possible for two sufficiently charismatic people to overpower these parasites. So I mean, it's been a divisive, or it's been a controversial issue, I think, and for some people, we found the limit in terms of the type of silly stories that More Than Meets the Eye can tell. I think for some people it's a stretch too far. It's too dumb an idea. But I think More Than Meets the Eye can be silly sometimes. It doesn't set a new direction for the title. And then there's been people this weekend that have talked about the real dark stories and the tragedy and the deaths. I think there's room for a bit of everything. Really.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're writing something serialized like a comic book, and you have arcs you want to tell, like working in something like a break, if you will, from the capital D drama.
Yes.
Like finding that rhythm. Do you find like it can be difficult to keep track of how long it's been since the capital D drama has started, and do you ever feel like, oh crap, I should have maybe taken a break during this?
Yeah, I mean, I did. It's more a case of wanting to keep. If you liken it to sort of spinning plates and the plates which relate to the big stuff, the big mythical stuff, the myth arc, they require it. To my mind, they require a spin less often. But you've got to give them a spin now and then. And the concession in the two-parter, the Personality Ticks two-parter, was obviously the rediscovery of Thunderclash. They've got a star map again. There's been the addition of these symbols on the star map. These tap into or hint at bigger mysteries, and for me, satisfied the quota of the sort of the capital P plot really for the whole series.
Well, and capital P plot is a huge part of More Than Meets the Eye. The structure of it, as you've alluded to in interviews and on Twitter, like there was a lot of planning day one that is carried through years down the road.
Yeah.
And that to me speaks of having a real big passion for not just subject matter but for the story you want to tell.
I'm quietly obsessed with telling as intricate a story as the medium and the audience will allow, and I mean that in the sense of provided there's a readership that is willing to partake in this and to play the game by looking, reading it, close reading, by looking for clues, by rereading issues, by holding in mind certain details, and then it should work. And I'm really blessed in having a readership that appears to be in it for that reason, in part. Anyway, people tend to like the sense that you've got to commit to the series, and you've got to get a feel for the rhythm of how these stories work. And I don't know whether it's been noticeable, but as we've gone on, really, we don't, for better or worse, this may not be a good thing. It certainly potentially deters brand new readers, but we don't as often work in comic conventions where each issue characters, we the writers, me in this case, takes time to have characters refer to each other by name and reintroduce each other and and through the exposition establish what's happened too much. We sort of forego that, and we're not even, to a different extent, we're not even that reliant on footnotes pointing you to specific stories. It's sort of, the idea is, if you're this far into it, we expect you to have caught up and know what's what.
Well, and you've got a readership that the passion is there. Like an example that's really easy is, as you said, once this book took a 2-month break from like punch in the jaw levels of drama, some people said, I don't know, it seems to be losing the magic. I thought that was kind of there was a silver lining to that I saw, which is the amount of investment people have is enormous.
Yeah, it's. People are very, and well, it's at events like this, and it's you get to speak to people, and you can feel the passion. It's really lovely to see that it's a part of people's lives. But I take the point. I mean, there was I sensed a sort of a ripple when the second part hit. I mean, people gave this. Don't get me wrong. I've heard nice things about it too. It's been well received by some. Others, as you say, were a bit unconvinced by it, and part of the criticism has been, is this more than me? So going off the rails? Is it a caricature? Is it just too silly? I'm very careful about long before it gets out off my computer, before I press send on that script, I've got to be satisfied that it works for me. And I felt that those two stories, that two-parter, did. But I never forget that you are judged by your last story, and you're only as good as what's out there right now. And it creates it's a healthy pressure. But I never think, what, we can coast for a few issues. We'll put in some filler. I just don't believe in filler.
Well, the amount of as I said, like the pre-planning laid out, like it seems like you have a very set course on how you want to proceed. Like it's been flexible, of course.
Yeah.
But in being able to lay out things so well, something I noticed this year, this has come up many times. I just like to lay it out here. There was yet another IDW Transformers, major event, and it seemed to me like just due to the passion of its readership and the way that its story needed to progress, More Than Meets the Eye kind of got to have a pass on that, on having to work itself into that so directly as it did with Dark Cybertron.
Yeah, I mean, for a time, More Than Meets the Eye was part of that. Was part of Combiner Wars, and hence at the beginning of season 2, as we call it. I made sure that the other Protector bots were on board, and Mirage was going to be on board anyway. So we were preparing to partake in the crossover. The reason why ultimately it wasn't part of the crossover wasn't so much to do with any sort of perception of the fan base, but more that to integrate the Lost Light and the crew into a crossover means usually, or would mean, bringing everything back. You're doing a Dark Cybertron again quite soon after Dark Cybertron's finished, and dragging the crew back to Cybertron or wherever, getting them all together again, and then contriving another reason to send them back out to where they were. And I think there was a line that I cut from issue 28 after Dark Cybertron, the first issue of season 2, and it's Rodimus Prime basically saying to the other, to Autobot High Command, right, we're going back off there again now. We're going out, and don't call us back, because and if we keep coming back, it's going to be like a commute. And it came out for space reasons, but I mean that was sort of part of the reason why the decision was, just keep doing your own thing, let them progress, let them pursue their quest, we can handle this. And there's now essentially 3 titles as well.
Yeah.
So you can do a crossover with 2 of those 3. Maybe there'll be a further crossover which omits, which includes More Than Meets the Eye and omits one of the other titles.
Yeah. And would you say that speaks to the way IDW handled Transformers, that it doesn't have the big book approach of, we've got to make sure that everyone is on board for this crossover, no matter what?
Yeah, I think, IDW are very good in, wow, that's boxes being ripped up for those that...
I think someone's actually going head first through a box. That's what happens when you don't pay your registration. TFcon treats it well.
Yeah, so the question was about, I guess, IDW's approach to crossovers.
Yeah.
They are very good, and John Barber's a very, very adept editor, and he's very skilled at, obviously the technical side of it, the scheduling and the which books need to participate and how it's all going to play out. And equally, going back to your earlier comment, perhaps where More Than Meets the Eye is looked at in a slightly different light, it's sort of perceived almost as having its own brand. They've all got a strong identity, but More Than Meets the Eye sort of, in some respects, turns it up to 11 really, and maybe it's got a momentum which keeps it going, even though it isn't part of the big crossovers which are well promoted. That's going around a bit, but that's something which I part of me thought, it would have been nice to be in Combiner Wars, because you had the, I don't know if it was a previews cover, but you've got some publicity for it. The sales of the other 2 books, they spiked. They got a push.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for the big multi-part crossover.
They get to be packed in with the toys as well.
There's that too. Yeah.
Get out to kids.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's probably too soon to judge on the back of one crossover what the patterns are. But this time round we did our own thing.
It felt like I just felt like the IDW approach after Dark Cybertron. It felt like a lot of lessons were learned from Dark Cybertron in a very positive way. In both the relationship to More Than Meets the Eye and the 2 books that did take part, it just felt smoother.
Well, that's good. Way. That's good. Dark Cybertron was huge. A 12-part series, any series, is you're going to need a lot to happen to justify that length.
It seemed like it was all hands on deck for that too, like artists, writers, everyone, going head first into this.
Yeah, I guess, and sort of I'm probably not the best qualified since I was sitting it out, but I think a smaller scale and fewer characters, and different stakes as well. With Dark Cybertron, it was the 30th anniversary story. 16 toys to pack in comics were needed for, because essentially with John, well, I did 1, John did 3 prologues to it, so essentially a 16-part story.
Yeah.
You've got anything less than the end of the universe is going to be, you're going to be shortchanged with that.
Yeah, the 16-part story. There is a strike, a garbage strike on Cybertron, but not a big.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a 16-part heated debate around the board table. Yeah.
The subject matter you've covered a lot in your writing. Is there's a lot of world building going on in there, and it's attracted, I think, a lot of people who otherwise would not have given Transformers the time of day other than to say, hey, I think Soundwave was cool, he shot tapes. And now there are articles being written quite commonly online from writers of just the comic medium saying that this is a book that is worth reading outside of the fact that it says the Transformers on it. And I've posited on a podcast recently that it's really intriguing to see, not just through More Than Meets the Eye, of course, but it's been quite a big ambassador of the fiction to a wider audience, and it's partly been boosted by the huge surge Transformers received in 2007.
Yep.
And it's very smart fiction. It introduces a lot of very new ideas, very progressive ideas, yet it all comes on the back of the Michael Bay films, which are ostensibly a much more frat boy, summer kaboom type of thing. So when you were moving into More Than Meets the Eye, once you saw these more critical thinkers, speaking of your series, surely there must have been like a moment of deer in the headlights of like, wait, hold on a second. Transformers.
From me, no, the opposite. That's all I've lived for in terms of telling Transformers stories, is to try as best I can to convince the wider world that this is a phenomenally rich and enduring and malleable franchise. That it's a fantastic vehicle like all the best science fiction, and I'm talking about the concepts, not more than meets the eye. That would be arrogant, but I mean, like all the best science fiction franchises, it can accommodate a lot of ideas, and it can be used as a vehicle to tell a lot of stories that offer up insights into the human condition. If people are critiquing more than meets the eye because they see it as telling political stories or allegorical stories, or passing comment on medical ethics or fascism, whatever, I love that. I'm happy with that.
That's what I was hoping to hear. The thing that I personally took from More Than Meets the Eye over the years is it was catering entirely to my own tastes. Like going into Transformers, like growing up with it, never really leaving it. The part that stuck with me once I got a bit older and thought, why do I keep following what is ostensibly a toy commercial at its roots, is that if you can operate in this fiction, you take the idea these things are bipedal creatures that change form. And you just kind of go with that. A lot of what your book is doing, the medical side, the political side, the functionist movement is fascinating to me. Just that whole idea, it's what I was hoping to see sometime from Transformers that I just assumed could not exist. And surely the comic medium is what allows for more of this to have the freedom to happen.
Yeah, it's the medium itself, and also a very a company in IDW and in Hasbro who are prepared to take, to take risks with it, or to have faith in the material, to have faith in the suitability of Transformers to shoulder the burden of these ideas. Really, we didn't. When we started More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise, and John and I were talking genuinely, saying, if we get to issue 12 of our respective titles, then okay, this is what we do in the next sort of 4-6 issues. It was very much in those early days like a hand-to-mouth thing in terms of forward planning. We'd mapped out a 12 to 16 issues arc, but that could have been concertinaed if we had to do it. So that they found their feet, and that they found a wider audience, that they built up a sufficient critical mass in sort of both senses of the word to now be in their 40s. We're both, John and I, planning the 50s, issue 50 and so on. It's obviously good, but it's rewarded the investment that various people have made. That these type of stories can be told.
Absolutely, and I should say I don't mean to leave John Barber
out
of this at all. RID delivered its own thing in that it showed the political side of a society that once was a 1 million year war, or multi-million year war between the Autobots and the Decepticons, and that also I found incredibly fascinating. The idea of the nails coming back home, it's added a whole lot. Just one quick thing about your use, because you often refer to seasons in your stories, and you often have soundtracks to the scenes you write. Do you when you're thinking of ideas for a scene or a storyline, do you often visualize kind of a cinematic look, like kind of a picture in your head, like something with a score, something with motion that?
It's more a case of structurally how I approach the stories, and you're right. The parlance, the seasons and the episodes actually of now. I don't even hear myself, using those terms. And actually, so many people today have talked about their favourite episodes actually, rather than their favourite issues, which is so I'm polluting the discourse. But no, I think I approach. When we started off again, going back to the beginning, both John and I talked about having a lot more standalone, self-contained stories, as an antidote to the decompressed 4-6 issue stories, not writing for the trade, and that took us halfway, if not further, towards thinking of each issue as a TV episode, in the sense that you've got a 3-act structure. You'll have an A plot and a B plot. You'll have a resolution and stuff. You'll have a climax. I'm not saying those things are unique to TV, but certainly in my own case, it's sort of the structural discipline. Really, I do think of those stories as if they were translated into 44 minutes on the TV.
Yeah, it's how as you grow up, the way that you take in stories and experiences. I think that kind of dictates the way that if you become a creator, you then start imagining them yourself.
Yes.
Even if it is a written and drawn medium. The soundtrack season episode approach, it connects with it in a way that I think also it also calls back to the roots of Transformers as a cartoon in a way, like something you watch on TV.
That's true. I used to watch a lot more TV than I do now, and films actually. But I find that when I do go and see a movie, that's when it's most likely that I'll sort of have an idea that I'll start to think of more than meets the eye in sort of cinematic terms, and I'll think of the sort of the big sort of tub thumping finale type things that need to happen. A lot of the remaining light set pieces or story beats came to me through watching some films in that sort of period as I was planning it. So I can sort of it's a motivational thing.
When you talk about the big moments, the kaboom moments, the emotional moments, just thinking about some experience I've had myself. When you're coming up with a story, do you come up with it in a linear fashion, like beginning 2, 3, 4, 5, or when you're thinking of the larger story, do you find, say, the beginning and the end come to you, but then the middle is the part where the most work happens?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's the latter. I certainly know, like season 2 finale, I know how that's going to begin and end. I know what has to happen in order to get from the beginning to the end, but there is some scope to it to jumble the order. But I mean, in terms of creating an issue, probably the most amount of time goes into getting the structure right. Structure, and then dialogue really is how it works out.
Yeah. Well, since we're hitting the 20-minute mark, I have a listener question.
Wow.
That was.
Is it live? Has it come in? How can it be?
I wasn't that cruel, but I did cite a listener question or two, but I've got a main one that I don't know if this goes into spoiler territory for future issues. So I'll leave that right now. But the question is in regards to the Rossum's Trinity concept. This is pertaining a lot to the biology of Transformers, and in the books you and John have been writing, there's been a lot more revealed in the world building about not just the political structure or the belief structure, the emotional structure, but also the physical structure, the biology of these things. And the fact that they have to shift form makes their biology all the more interesting, along with their longevity, their mechanical nature.
Yeah.
So in regards to Rossum's Trinity, where it says the spark, TCOG, and brain are kind of interlinked, and enough damage to one can cause the other two to fail. The militant monoform movement and others have been written to say they've existed without a TCOG. In Ratchet's case, he survived as a head and a spark, at least for a little while, when he was dissected. And there are times where the three are damaged or separated, but the Transformer comes out okay.
So explain that then, basically.
Well, the question is there a science deeper to that, or was Rossum himself maybe misled?
No, I think in all the instances where we've seen damage sustained to one of those three things, I think it should be apparent that the TCOG is the most disposable of those three. As Triple M demonstrate, you can live an entirely happy, safe life without a TCOG. The key, though, of course, is how to remove it. So if you're a sufficiently skilled surgeon and you take it out, there needn't be any damage to your spark or to your brain. So of the three, that's the disposable corner of the triangle. Hierarchically, the next one is the brain. Obviously, you need the brain, and the brain essentially translates the soul, the spark. But as we saw in Simon Furman's era, where sparks are contained, there's containment units, and sparks are sort of very much separate from the brain for extended periods. Again, it is possible to exist as a spark and to be reunited with your brain, and you're okay. So TCOG you can do without most easily. Brain you can live apart from, provided your spark is protected and so on. You can't do anything without a brain, obviously, but I mean, in terms of simply containing it, the spark is the one that you cannot do without. If your spark is damaged or if it's extinguished, doesn't matter if you've got a pristine brain, pristine TCOG, you're dead. And that's the hierarchy of Rossum, I suppose.
All right, yeah. Because the debate that resulted in this question coming out was an interesting one, mostly about the more of the specifics of the Trinity, and I think that knowing the Trinity is not three equal parts, much as it's a hierarchy, 3-tier thing. That makes a lot more sense to me as well. There were two other quick questions, if you don't mind. One of them was about Voss. If there is any reason beyond just his personal preference to speaking an ancient language.
No, I'm just trying to think. Well, no, he's a linguistic purist, which implies that it's through choice. he's adopting that through choice. I mean, he was at the beginning he really couldn't speak any other language, and Tarn has been teaching him to speak Neo-Cybex. But no, it's through. He's a stickler for the old tongue.
Yeah.
That sounds strange. That's a strange sentence.
Well, it sounds like just a character trait.
Yeah.
Less so than something forced.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he could choose to speak. Probably by now he could choose to speak like everyone else does. But
yeah. And this final question I had relates to a recent issue where First Aid was talking to Velocity about a medic that cured Thunderclash.
Yes.
And I don't know if this is treading into spoiler territory, but she described someone with an average face, average looking. And the question was, what did Velocity actually see? Was this an effect of the parasites on her that she just saw an average-faced medic?
yes, is the answer. I mean, it was a personality tick that fixed Thunderclash, but I mean, their whole sort of MO really, the whole raison d'etre is that they're very unprepossessing to the point where you struggle to remember. And if you've got a blank in your memory, if you're going to, so the theory goes, if you're going to try and recall somebody that you can't remember, it's going to be a nondescript person. You're going to default to the sort of average looks and size, and probably your own race as well. You're going to assume it was somebody that is like you. But has no distinguishing features. So that hopefully explains Velocity's account of that.
Well, that does it for our listener questions section. I guess with the whole place coming down around us, we should probably move on soon. I have plenty more I'd love to talk about, but I hope we can catch up again sometime.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing I'd leave is just a quiet, selfish thing of Punch Counterpunch is a super cool character concept, and I would love to see the character explored in some way in IDW, especially with the current state of things, with more having been laid out about the science of many things about how Transformers just work in the broader sense. That's my little selfish bit I want to throw in there.
Right, I'll make a note.
Right on the palm. Thanks so much for your time. I really would love to catch up with you again sometime.
We'll have to do it again.
It's great talking to somebody who has an attitude towards Transformers that is, in my opinion, like a very healthy one. Seeing the concepts more so than the roots or the end result of the product of what is made.
Well, thank you. It's what keeps a lot of us, it's what attracted us in the first place to Transformers, and it's what keeps it, in my mind, what keeps it healthy and fresh and invigorated. Today.
Yeah, well, thanks very much, and
Thank you.
We'll catch up again another day.
It's a deal.